Feast Ember may be in game, but our Feast Ember updates are actually arriving next week. Over in the news recently, we've got a promotion featuring Wubbox. At the very back of this location that we see where Wubbox was first discovered in the lore, we see a huge red aura surrounding Wubbox. This aura is glowing red in the same colour as Fire Haven, and if we look at the surrounding notification banner, we can see the air, water, cold, plant, and earth elements. Now, we know that Wubbox has been confirmed to be the representative hex elemental inside of the game, and with all of these elements surrounding Wubbox and this huge orange aura surrounding it, I think it's certainly hinting that the fire element side of Wubbox is about to be awakened. Specifically too, this is supposed to be a Feast Ember sale, and with us getting updates next Wednesday, it looks very likely that we are going to be seeing another Wubbox be added to Fire Haven. It's been teased all the way back since April that Wubbox would be quite likely to appear on Fire Haven out of any other island, so therefore I think it's really likely that we are going to be seeing it. And if you don't believe me, let's go and take a look at a recent teaser from Monster Handler Matt.
The natural islands and ethereal islands are the only islands in the main dimension where Wubbox has been reported. This seems connected to the idea that Wubbox as the theoretical hex element monster. There is a sixth missing element there that's not exactly represented in the Wubbox's current range. Not really sure what that's about.
So as you guys heard there, Fire Haven Wubbox looks all to be confirmed. And with this notification, I think it's absolutely 100% likely that we are going to be seeing it this Wednesday. Look no further than My Singing Monsters Playground as well. Tons of people have been commenting ever since that came out last year, a year ago now, that Kana is inside of the Wubbox. And therefore, when Wubbox comes on over to Fire Haven, the fact that Kana is inside of Wubbox will finally make sense, as Kana will make his debut inside of the Wubbox Playground when it comes on over to Fire Haven next week. Alongside this, though, on the loading screen, we have yet another teaser, another whopping one at the very bottom underneath the the lovely sweet spot that they love to put teasers in. We can see a brand new monster. This isn't just any brand new monster, though. If we pull up some concept artwork for Growl to the side, you can see that this beak is identical, matching towards it. This means that it could be one of several things. I've seen lots of comments about this potentially being an epic Growl. That would make a lot of sense, seeing as though it's supposed to be based on this concept that's shown on screen right now. However, going by how to the side of the beak too, you can see these little green streams, and also to the side of that, you can see some orange floating down off of this monster. It's really likely that this could be something else. This design looks a little bit too different for it to be a variant, especially if you look at Growl's hopping. You can see that its beak is placed at the very top of this monster, and this appears to be a bit lower. Obviously, they can twist and turn these teasers, so who knows what kind of angle we're looking at, but this design looks evidently quite different towards its normal counterpart, so therefore I would assume that it's actually going to be a new monster. And with Feast Ember happening right now, and it's just having the beat hereafter, and there have been loads of Bone Island up-to-dates inside of that, I'm saying that we're probably going to be seeing this monster on Fire Haven, and for it to coincide with Fire Haven Wubbox when it comes along this week. And going back how it's probably going to be on Fire Haven with its design, and the fact that Feast Ember is happening right now, and the beats hereafter, we've got to turn our heads and look towards the options that we have available. Considering how this design is very different, and the Amber Island Rare is already going to be coming for the fires anyway, there's a lot going on in the variants department for the fire elementals already. I think that our most likely option would be for it to be the Fire Haven Mythical. We've heard absolutely nothing about these brand new Mythicals that are going to be arriving recently, and the fact that we know too that the creator backed out potentially behind the Fire Haven Mythical, and that therefore the Fire Haven one would be probably one of the most ready ones to release inside of the game, I think it's quite likely for us to see another Mythical make its debut. And going by how we have another Mythical on the way, we've got to do some relaying back here and go back to the initial announcement behind the Mythicals. On the Big Blue Bubble website, it also announced that alongside the Mythicals, we're going to be seeing the Dreamythical for that Mythical counterpart be released in a pair coinciding with the release of the Mythical. So I don't think we just have the Mythical to expect, but I also think we have the Dreamythical to expect potentially all at once, which is absolutely crazy. But before we talk about that, we've absolutely got to go back to Fire Haven Wubbox. Wubbox always plays right where the song is building up towards inside of that verse, the main kind of verse behind any island song. look at the main Wubbox and it's always the one that it plays inside of. So I kind of have no doubt that it's probably going to play with Growl, and as Wubbox always brings the fire, I'm totally expecting for Wubbox to come along and just really fill out the song. And honestly, for this one to go fully out there, we know that the Wubboxes are absolutely one of the biggest monsters in terms of sounding, changing up an island and making it feel really different. And I'm expecting this one to be no different, especially seeing as though Fire Haven is just so upbeat and there's so many beats and rhythms towards the song, in a sense towards how the song gradually increases in its build-up. I feel like there's a lot that the Wubbox could do inside of that section to make Fire Haven an absolutely lit song. Okay, I've got to stop with the fire puns now. I could also see it playing inside of the Dandidoo verse right before the Growl verse. I think that verse doesn't need quite as much fluff on top of it, and I totally see Wubbox playing inside of the Growl one purely because of how it usually plays inside of the verse that the song builds up towards. But Dandidoo's verse I could also see it playing with, as that has quite a large build up towards it too, so potentially it could play there as well. I'm not really sure, but Wubbox always has one track, an absolutely astonishing track that always changes up every single island, and seeing as though it always seems to have just one track, I'm expecting for it to only play inside of the Growl verse. And for this one to potentially have the most impressive animation yet out of anyone that we've seen, the last Wubbox that we saw was on Wobbling Island all the way back in 2017. Oh my goodness, that was ages ago. So considering that and the fact that the Big Blue Bubble team have been increasing their animation capabilities with the epic Wubboxes, I'm totally seeing that this one could be our biggest Wubbox debut yet. And going inside of that topic too, I think tying it back to how the animation team has evolved, I also think that the sound team has evolved. So with all of these epic Wubboxes that we've been seeing and these amazing sounds, I'm expecting for this sound to be astonishing too. There's lots going into this Wubbox that I think will make it come out on top, honestly, out of all of them, which is really exciting. Going back to the song though, and Wubbox, I think pairing alongside that, of course, we will have our Mythical. And when I'm saying pairing alongside it, I actually do think that this Mythical is going to play particularly outside of the Wubbox sounds, fill out the other verses a little bit more. And seeing as though this is going to have quite a large beak on its design that we've seen already, I'm expecting for this to be a vocalist monster. You can see the little tongue poking out inside of it, and it's really obvious that this would be a vocalist, so therefore I think that would fit really well with either the Tweedle solo verse or in the Dandidoo verse, right before the Wubbox potentially in Growl verse. I can see the gradual increase there, adding a little bit more tension towards Wubbox's build-up and making the song really cool. Overall, I think this is going to do a very large deal towards the Fire Haven song, just like to the beat hereafter with Bone Island. I think this monster is quite confusing though, because it seems to share similarities to Growl, yet it also seems to share similarities to Gobblegard, which is going to be really cool to see how it turns out, but I think it's going to be interesting to see which family it potentially delves into the most. At the moment, going by the concept art, it looks like it could be Growl, but then I look at the design again and I'm like, that's Gobblegard, so that's going to be quite interesting. Potentially we'll find out a little bit more behind that later, and seeing as though these two families are vocalists too, I think that does also come into the part that this is quite likely to be a vocalist monster. And going back to the beak on the loading screen too, I think this one is going to be based on an eagle. We know that all of the Mythicals are based on animals, and therefore with this one being no different, I'm expecting for it to be based on an eagle. And if we take the colour picker out, as I'm colourblind, you can see that the top upper bits, which are hidden in the shadows, appear to be a red colour. I don't know if that's just because of the shadows making it out to be that colour, but if you go a little bit further down, it certainly is a reddish colour, so I'm imagining that this eagle could potentially have a red body with some orange and green streams hanging off of its body almost. And for what island it could be from, I am a little curious because there's greens and oranges, so I don't want to completely call it, but I do think it will still look like it's from Fire Oasis, like we went over inside of my top 12 mythical predictions video, going off of the oranges and greens. But if his body is red, then maybe it could be based on Earth Island, which would be really interesting. Besides our new Mythical and Wubbox on Fire Haven though, we obviously have our new Dreamythical too, and the counterpart behind the Mythical I'm expecting to be the opposite instrument wise. So if we get a vocalist, we've got to have an instrumentalist on Mythical Island with this Dreamythical. And with this one, as we know, Mythical Island is very grand, it's got to be another grand opera instrument. When I think Mythical Island, I always go back to your opera song. That's where I'm getting that from. But I'm expecting it to play along with Crunchy. It sounds quite empty and it feels like that part needs the most filling out of anyone. But this song is very much in its early stages, so that could pretty much go anywhere. And for the Firehaven Mythicals, we've not talked about that on Mythical Island. I would expect that that will add some vocals to Catalyst and Sporo's solo, as there's no vocalist there right now, and that's quite empty vocal-wise. There's been a trailer confirmed to be dropping this Wednesday on the 23rd of November, and I'm expecting for the trailer to reveal everything like the Be Hereafter one did, and there's a lot of content here, guys. I'm delving into this right now, and I cannot believe the amount of content that's on the way. So I don't know whether it'll all be coming at once. It certainly seems to be hinting that way, at least with the Wubbox. We know that that's most likely coming, and I don't think they're going to keep the Haven Mythical behind, seeing as though that's teased on the loading screen for Feast Ember. But that's so much content to the point where I'm like, maybe they should save the Dreamythical for later and give the Dreamythical a bit of breathing room so we can have some room to discover these brand new monsters one at a time. As I feel like the spotlight might almost be taken aback a little bit here, as there'll be that much content here, there'll be nothing to set your mind upon. So maybe it'd be cool to release that next week. So for the release behind them, we'll be seeing everything potentially on the 23rd of November this Wednesday. But again, I'm kind of predicting that they might save the Dreamythical for later. We saw it with Bleatnik and Crunchy where they released them one week after another, so I feel like that kind of schedule would really suit this island. But we'll have to see what they do in that department, won't we? There's so much content on the way here, guys, and another Wubbox coming after all these years is really exciting. Anyway, I'm off to go crazy about Firehaven Wubbox now, as just thinking about what they could do for the song just makes me extremely excited. Anyway, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, guys, and subscribe too for now. I'll see you guys later though for now. Bye, guys.